a steward. I can be an assistant to all of that. I can be a co-creator uh, rather than somebody that comes in and just top down stuff, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Hey, let's listen first. So that perspective has had a lot to do with shifting my grief. Once I once I've been realizing this year on the fact that nature itself, the earth itself, has its own healing abilities, and I don't have to be responsible for all of that. I can be
Right.
a participant in that.
Yes, seeing as how we're part and parcel of nature, that's it. I'd be with you 100% on that one.
So that's my eco grief. And I think grief in general, because you said, oh, you have grief inside of you. And that's so true because it was coming out in all these different ways. So, like I said yesterday, there'll be another lesson in grief coming to me at some point, and I'm interested to see my response to that compared to how I've responded before. And if indeed grief comes up. Um, so that's where I am at the moment on that.
Awesome. Awesome. Nice shift. And Susan, you were a big part of the conversation yesterday. Do you have anything to add to that? Anything from your experience or anything to share?
Sure. I want a report from you, Carrie, after you go to that meeting conference. I want to hear what happens. It sounds
Yeah.
exciting. Um, I also have been thinking about the fact that I have a gazillion goals. For instance, I went to Costco today, and I always talk about this, but now they're selling just about everything, ready-made meals, salads, they're all in plastic. And I'm going around thinking I have been carrying this unbearable goal. It's much too heavy to have us wake up and stop doing that. It's not stopping. I read about people who are dredging the ocean and getting tons and tons of plastic out of the ocean. And my thought is, well, that's nice. But on the other side of it, we're dumping 4 times as much, if not tons more. We're dumping. So the goal is to have us wake up and stop that. That is not happening. So my other thought is what you just said, Carrie, that nature will take care of itself, but we might not be here to see that. We may become so toxic with our habits to the planet that we will be unable to live here. And then the earth will just say, well, that was interesting. Let's get back to normal, or let's get back to something new, but it will be beautiful and wonderful, but we might not be here. And I'm trying to get my goal to be that, I'm trying to allow the mess. Not that I'm not doing things. Like in my parish, this whole last increment of time season in our church worship calendar was creation. And from the pulpit, the preaching was, let us become mindful of our consumption. Let us reuse and, use natural things. Let us be kind to Mother Earth. But what's happening? We just had a huge church picnic. Everything was packed up in those big black plastic bags, even though I said I would donate compostable bags so that we no longer do that. And they all said, great, but it's not happening. And I'm becoming a big nuisance in my church. And, it goes on from there. So I haven't found my place in here yet. Because the actuality, and I hope I'm using the word right, the actuality is we are still way asleep and much too comfortable to
Yes, I agree.
change what we're doing. So that's the actuality. What's my reality? Well, it's been a tremendous amount of upset, grief, the whole deal, Carrie, you know. And when you said echo grief, I thought, there it is. That's the word. I hadn't heard that word. And certainly there are all kinds of griefs that live in us, generational, relational, all kinds of things. But that's, you can put your finger on that one. And that is something we should be able to do something about. And we can if we get enough critical mass. We can get as enlightened as we want, but if we're not enlightened in that way, we may not survive. And my niece who lives on the Cape, she's a member of the Audubon Society and various other conservation things. She came into an inheritance when her husband died. She's donated the whole thing to the Audubon people. And yet she says, and I won't use her word, we're screwed, basically, she says. I'm doing this because I can do this, but we are screwed. It's hopeless. We're done for. That's what she says. And
Get her some worksheets.
well, the thing is, I think that's true too. But what's she doing with her? She's doing what Carrie has been doing. She is pouring her resources into conservation efforts. Anyway, even though she feels as if there's no hope for the human race, she knows ultimately the planet will be all right, but we might not be. And I must say, I'm pretty much there. If I have a lot of grinding in my stomach, I'll do a wake up sheet, but it only takes me to the place where I can observe and allow this and be as balanced and healthy and loving toward the planet and my fellow man as I can in the meantime. It hasn't gotten any better than that, Michael. And maybe that's because I'm not really doing a wake up sheet. I'm not sure.
Well, my input would be that you hold to that goal, that the planet wakes up and that we begin to treat Mother Earth reasonably. I think that's a really good goal to hold to. And if when you load it in your mind, it brings up some sort of eco grief or some other kind of grief, then cancel that goal, drop into the part of your mind that's already that is part and parcel of destroying the earth. Because energetically, as long as you hold some form of hostility or fear about what's being done on the earth, you're energetically a vote for that to continue. So I'm
Well, yeah.
suggesting you apply the forgiveness process to withdraw your vote and then allow yourself to tap into life in a whole other way. You know, Carrie, I'm delighted that you're going to be joining us for the intuitive development workshop. And the whole point of the intuitive development is collapse the constructs of the mind, which are legion, and learn to bring in information more directly from the environment, from the earth, from each other. This morning, Joe, Bryce, and I were communicating, and you know, I've spoken since I started to do my own quantum still point work back about 10 months ago now. I had this opening, which I've shared with everybody, that I'm finding that when pulses start to happen anywhere in my structure, that there's information there. It's a signal. Oh, here's something you need to pay attention to. So inviting everybody to do that. And in my conversation with Joe this morning, he sent me a quote from Hermann Hesse, who won the Nobel Prize in literature back in the 1940s. And it was just like so right on with our conversation yesterday. He's got a novel named Demian, Demian. And a quote from the novel is, "I have no right to call myself one who knows. I was one who seeks and still am, but I no longer seek in the stars or in books. I'm beginning to hear the teachings of my blood pulsing within me. My story isn't pleasant. It's not sweet and harmonious like the invented stories. It tastes of folly and bewilderment, of madness and dream, like the life of all people who no longer want to lie to themselves." And I thought that was just so, timely and so on target with what we're doing. And once again, I reinforce this. I cannot tell you how important paying attention to your physiology, allowing yourself to link into the presence of love and pay attention to the information that's coming in, comes in as a pulse somewhere in the structure. And if you pay attention to it, it will inform you of so much. In the
Michael,
meantime, yes,
could you read that again? I missed a
sure,
word or two.
sure.
Yeah, thanks.
I have no right to call myself one who knows. I was one who seeks, and I still am, but I no longer seek in the stars or in books. I'm beginning to hear the teachings of my blood pulsing within me. My story isn't pleasant. It's not sweet and harmonious like the invented stories. It tastes of folly and bewilderment, of madness and dream, like the life of all people who no longer want to lie to themselves.
Thanks.
So what I'd like to do is go to another place with this whole idea of grief, or actually with any sensation that moves within the structure. And if we take the opening words in the book of John, where we're told, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. If we tie that in with the cell biologist, his name's not coming to me. In any event, what he's showing in the cell biologist laboratory, I'm sure his name will come to me as I'm speaking. What he's showing is that when you think a thought, a literal molecule appears in your body. Bruce Lipton. That molecule, a moment ago was non-physical, is now what we call physical. It's been lowered into the realm of perception. Circulates around in the structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. That neuropeptide, which is one of two things. It is either your creative impulse, you've originated something new, and when it lands on the cell creates what we call sensation or emotion to inform us of the quality of that impulse. If we feel revulsion, fear, terror, trauma, then we know that what we're initiating in the way of mind energy is not appropriate. So there's originating that impulse, that mind energy, which ties into the idea of thinking. And then there is the world of resonance, where what's already stored in carbon-based memory is resonated into activity. And when it is, that neuropeptide lands on the cell, and it informs us of the quality of the result that that energy is going to produce. If it is pain, if it is trauma, the cell is informing us of the quality. It's giving us feedback of the quality of what it is we're creating in our world. Elizabeth Kübler-Ross has a model for grief that she taught back in the 60s. I spent some time with her way back then. Pretty awesome lady. And she describes 5 discrete stages that grief go through. And the stages are, just to quickly cover them, denial. The initial stage, it can't be happening. Anger, why me? It's not fair. Either referring to God, to oneself, or anybody perceived rightly or wrongly as responsible. The anger pointed at whoever we want to blame. Bargaining, just let me live to see my son graduate. Or depression, I'm so sad, why bother with anything? And then the 5th stage is acceptance. It's going to be okay. And what I'd like to point, like many people I've talked to over the years, and they brought Kübler-Ross up in the stages, and they're looking at these stages like there's some kind of an objective, something you can go through or you don't go through, whatever. But if you really take a look, Kübler-Ross simply lays out the mind energy behind each stage. Anger, why me? It's not fair. Bargaining, just let me live. Denial, this can't be happening. Depression, I'm so sad. Acceptance, it's going to be okay. And if we understood those stages as being the presence of mind energy in our own cellular structure, and if grief is the result, that our cellular structure is saying to us, this does not belong in you. And that's why to apply forgiveness. Now, of course, the same thing applies if it's rage, if it's hatred, vengeance, whatever it is that one is experiencing. In the way of sensation or emotion, that the cellular structure is always informing us of the mind energy behind it. And when we start to free ourselves from that mind energy, which of course we're back to the forgiveness process. How do I rid myself of a particular piece of information, especially if that piece of information is unconscious, if I don't have a handle on it? Then I look at the situation, instead of denying it, the pretense that it's not there, I take responsibility. I look at the goal that causes my mind to bring, and my mind being something functioning through every cell in my structure, including my genes. And I look at the goal that I've used to recruit that data from my own physiology. And I cancel the goal, not because I don't want the result, but I recognize that when I load a goal for this result, when I load the mind energy for this result into my structure has a disease energy that I need to be removing. So when I breathe and allow myself to cancel and embrace what's underlying, what's been hidden from me, then I get to, by applying the breath and the presence of love, dissolve that energy in me, which is part of my creative process as long as it's active and unresolved in me. And of course, the world tells us that grief is this normal emotional reaction. It's natural. It's just kind of, what everybody does. But the truth is, no, I've worked with a lot of different people with grief. And there are many different qualities of mind energy behind the grief. And if we hold to that quality of mind energy, then we can continue to experience that particular energy. But when I choose to breathe, when I choose to presence love and cancel the goal, I get to embrace what lies underneath it and create its dissolution, its forgiveness from my structure. And how complex is it? One of the tongue-in-cheek stories I delivered yesterday, although it was hilarious to me when it happened, was when I was facing something that was a big issue for me just recently. And I was like, I've been working on this for so long. Why am I not finished? How long does this take? And the answer that came back was, how long have you been away? When was the last time somebody in your bloodline, when they thought about any particular issue around which there's some form of hostility or fear in the blood, was actually able to bring their human lives, the actual human presence of love, into their physiology? Feel the pulses of creation, the energetic dynamics that come in with our own breath, with the flowing of our blood, as Herman Hesse said.
So, Michael,
we'll gather a whole new realm of information. Go for it.
Could I add something to that? So,
please, certainly.
I think it's important to recognize the difference between feeling and emotion. And so emotions to me are reactions. Whether we might see it as a positive emotion, oh, what a beautiful sunset, or that we might perceive it as negative, like grief. And that doesn't mean that we don't continue to be human and feel, because I think feeling is part of our humanness. It's part of us as love. And I guess to me, the feeling of emoting and being love is there. And when the emotions are kind of healed and stripped away, that's when the real feeling of love can come out. And that's what I'm starting to do. I'm starting to just feel that love for the earth without the clouding of uh, heavy emotions. What are your thoughts
Sensation.
about that?
Yeah, that's exactly, if you remember in the early first couple of days of the quantum still point training and process, it was where's the pain physiologically? Now let go of the judgment that this is pain and let yourself experience it as a sensation. And what my feedback has been with the people that I've done that with is that when they experience it as a sensation, all of a sudden they realize, one of the base lessons of the course, they get on a whole new level. I've given this all the meaning it has for me. And then the meaning extracted, forgiven, leaves simply a sensation in form, and pain becomes less and less a part of the process. There's been a big focal point in churchianity on suffering and sacrifice. And my take, if we went back to Yeshua on the cross, is that he experienced tremendous sensations in his body, but he did not suffer because he did not add the component of hostility or fear that most everyone adds and thinks is normal. And of course, it is normal as long as that's what's in your tissue structure. But most of what the world considers normal has nothing whatsoever to do with human life. It's just energetic patterns stored in the structure. And when we can let loose of the meanings we've given it, then the pulses of life come through us, and we move out of this little 9-bit reflection of carbon-based memory into a 9-bit screen upon which the creation, the actuality, writes instructions, meanings, specific directions when we need them. Only based not on perception, based on actuality, based on what is happening in the actual energy system.
Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
You're right on something that Carrie was talking about, and you're doing it too. And I've been very concerned. The part of the echo grief for me has been the suffering, and I'm using that word consciously now. I've been fussing
Right.
about the suffering of animals
Yes.
that are banished from the forests because of fires, and a cat who may be taken from a shelter into somebody's home, and that person is not equipped to take care of the animal, and the animal is starving or using a litter box that's never cleaned. And my grandson has a cat, and there's a lot of neglect that goes on there. So there's a lot of angst and grief and sadness about animals. And what you're saying about, they say that about Mary in childbirth too. The Catholic thought is that she felt pain, but she did not suffer because she didn't have that kind of energy. And I'm thinking that's true for animals. I'm hoping it's true so that they experience it in the moment only for what it is, unpadded by meanings that adds to suffering or negative mind energy, whatever you want to call it. They are just experiencing that in the moment without an intellectual understanding or interpretation of it. And they definitely are feeling it. And on Tim Hayes's program, he was reading something from Alan Watts about once you are awakened, you do not fall in love. And the implication is you're high and dry now. You don't feel a darn thing. You're above it all. And Carrie is
Oh,
correct.
far from that.
Yeah. And I was thinking, no, my experience with my love and my love addiction has been that a lot of those apron strings are being untied. I watch when I'm tempted to suffer and I think, no, this is as it should be. But I'm also finding that, like my fellow parishioners, who I like very much, I'm loving them without attachment. I'm just really loving and being with them now in a new way, and that's becoming true of so many relationships, even the relationships that my addict went after. It isn't a done deal, but it is a process that I feel as if somehow it's a gigantic wake up sheet being done on that
In
whole
process.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And my offering would be, I suspect, since you've been around this work this long and you've done as much work as you've done, that you're not loving these people at the church at all, but you are realizing yourself as the presence of love in your own physiology and able to extend that to them,
Well,
rather
I
than
guess,
this
yeah.
this
I've never
definition
called
of
it that.
love that,
Right. I've never
that,
called it that. And I've always thought that it would mean I don't have any feeling. And that isn't true at all. It's
oh no, it
exactly the
goes a
opposite.
thousand times bigger.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I want to say, when you say you've never loved anybody, that's where I went. And maybe other people do too. So you do love, but in a very different way. Sorry about the noise.
Well,
There's a workman at my house, so I better
oh,
mute.
cool. Okay. So once again, there's a subtle loss that happens when we turn the word that describes our humanness into a verb and think it's something we're going to do to somebody else, or we're going to get from somebody else, or we're going to give to somebody else, as opposed to having the uplink connected so that our human created essence, which is love, is ever present and awake and alert within our own form, and therefore able to extend that energy toward others, as opposed to the matching bags of garbage game that the world plays of, I approve of you because you're fulfilling all my goals, but if you stop fulfilling my goals, then I'll puke on you. And I call that love. I mean, that's just not love. It's just,
Right. Yeah. Mm.
and one of the reasons why I think that's word is distinction is really important is because our minds are run by words. Broca's area is right next door to the emotional center in the brain. Our energetic patterns run off of words. And if I have an incorrect definition of a word, I cannot carry out the action associated with that word. If somebody tells me, and I think I've used this on the show before, but if somebody tells me I've got a brand new Cadillac sitting out in the yard, out in the back lot, all I have to do is go out and, to push the button on the key and drive away with it. It's mine. And somebody tells me that a Cadillac, it's yellow and it's shaped kind of like a beetle and it's short, and I go out there and the definition I have for a Cadillac is this yellow beetle looking thing. I get in and I drive away and I leave the Cadillac behind because I've got an incorrect definition. If I tell myself that I'm going to love someone, then I leave the work required to incarnate myself as love in my own physiology and in this world, because I've got an incorrect definition. I think it was Plato that said, let me define the words and I'll end the argument. So my offering would be that as long as we have the thought disorders, i.e., thoughts that go against experiencing ourselves as the active presence of love, then we can project our grief. When those mind energies are activated, we can convert that into pictures of all sorts of things. Hence, whether it's somebody saying I'm angry at them, or I'm sad about that, or I'm in grief about that, it's like, stop. You're never anything about anything that's out there. Whatever's moving in you is moving in you because it's in you. And when you own it, then you can isolate it and choose to remove it if it doesn't serve you. Whereas if you can't define it properly, you can't remove it. You can't do the action required. And so what we want to support is action that brings results, where each of us can individually and collectively incarnate in our forms as the active presence of love, be freed of the perceptions from the past, live in the pulse of the universe, in alignment with the universe, so that we are directly fed information from the actuality, that we literally have access to the whole actuality rather than access to this little 9-bit construct out of carbon-based memory from the past. And that changes the whole game.
So just a teeny practical question. I still find when I'm in that state or coming toward it, I'm still aware of preferences.
Sure.
Okay, so that's okay.
Sorry, me? Of course we have preferences.
Okay.
And again, if I turn a preference into a goal and I load the
Right.
goal and I'm in some kind of pain, then I want to get rid of the preference.
Oh,
and when
yeah.
I get rid of the preference, once I cancel the goal or get rid of the preference, then I may go back once I'm finished with it and reload the same preference. But I don't have the untoward energy moving in me that a moment ago resonated when I loaded that preference or that goal. So any place where forgiveness is activated, it's only activated as a temporary measure. Once you're finished with your forgiveness work, you can throw the tool away. It's of no use when you live in being. But as long as you still have shades of carbon-based memory hanging around with old unresolved dramas and traumas, then forgiveness it's the only tool that will do it.
So active present love doesn't mean you're totally always and forever there now that you've established it. You click in and out of it, or with one person that's, a trigger, perhaps. There you are back in your carbon-based memory, needing to give up a goal. But that doesn't mean you've never been in active present love at all. I think I'm an all or nothing sort of person. So I just want to hear you say that.
Well, I think my take is my experience is that it's a constitutional growth. I can think of many times in my life where I wish I could have lived there 24/7, 365. I look at some of the highlights a few times where I've had this mega opening. And it's like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally made it. I get to live here forever. And then along came the next goal and bingo, it was gone. It's like, oh, poop.
Okay, thanks. That's good. Helpful.
And ultimately, since our mind is made up of the patterns of our generations, those too must be faced. And that's a major piece of work. Does that leave anyone with any thoughts? Push that mute button, say hello, what's on your mind? Several of you we haven't heard from recently. What's on your mind? Share
Yeah, I would like to know other people's experience of grief and how how they've resolved that or dealt with that. I would find that very valuable.
Well, let's put that request out. And also, recently you had written to me something to the effect of, wanting to work with this community and building more community interaction. And I'm certainly wide open to any conversation you have in that regard, in that direction. I'm excited about that.
How about
So
maybe setting up coaching?
cool. It can be done.
Carrie, you said you had a wake-up sheet in the wings. Might it be useful to frame it out at this point?
I'm willing.
Awesome. Well, does anyone have any thoughts to share on your experience of grief, how you face grief, how you work through grief, what's going on in your life? Is there anything that you're working on right now that's being resolved? Anyone, anything to share? Okay. Well, Carrie, you want to lay out where you'd like to go with that worksheet?
Sure. I would like to work on my grief, the grief that I hold for people who abuse the earth and nature, because I feel that they don't know what they're doing, and it just makes me really sad.
So something outside of you makes you sad.
Yes,
Okay.
what other people are doing makes me sad.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe
Well,
you.
You
it
stepped
brings
in
up the
it, Carrie.
grief.
Millions wouldn't, but I believe
It
you, Carrie.
no, it brings up the grief in me, and they are doing it to me for God's sake.
I wonder, I wonder, Carrie, if it's grief or is it some form of pity?
Mm,
When you were saying that, what I heard was pity.
did you? Hmm, I hadn't
Not
thought
not
of
saying
that.
that's correct, but I'm wondering if that fits.
Well, I think it does. Yes.
That they're so unenlightened, so
And that sets up I'm holier than thou kind of thing, right?
oh yes,
I'm better than.
an old power person dynamic.
Hmm.
It
So
might be
maybe I need to
helpful.
go there.
Maybe, maybe. I'm open to support you, whatever it is.
Well, it's true. My power person is my mother, and she always felt that other people um, were never smart enough or good enough, or they weren't awakened enough about
Kind of
certain
like the
things
people
that,
who aren't treating the earth well.
yeah, 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 exactly. So I think that's a thing I'm doing. Um, because of that reaction that I'm having. And then what I'm doing is what she was doing in her frustration. Uh, that she was, but I don't think she pitied people, or
What word would you
felt
use?
or felt sad for them. I think she was scornful, and
Disdain.
I don't feel that.
Yeah.
I don't feel disdain. However, I am reacting in a similar way, that
Well,
sadness.
since our time is limited, if you were to just look at that, bring in that power person dynamic with mom, and then what what comes up for you around people's behavior toward the earth and their unenlightened posture toward the earth, what would your goal be for one, for them?
Okay, so my goal for them was that they would understand the consequences of their actions.
Is that all?
And they would change their behavior.
Ah, okay. So that would be the key. So understand and change. What about a goal in that circumstance for yourself?
Um, gosh.
Are you breathing?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
In fact, I was doing conscious breathing and I was hoping a goal for myself would come out of that. That I suppose my goal would be to release judgment.
So if the body of your thought includes judgment, then what you're going to do is create more judgment. What would be the alternative to that?
Acceptance.
Acceptance, to be able to embrace them fully in the presence of love.
Yeah.
And does that by any chance just coincidentally happen to match perhaps a goal you held for your mom in regard to yourself?
Oh, that she would embrace me in the full
Mm-hmm.
presence of love. Yeah, yeah, it does.
So I'd make a note on all three of those scenarios. And go ahead.
Can I just say that in the space that I am now, I feel like if I were to embrace them in the fullness of love, that would make it okay what they're doing. And I want that to change. I want that behavior to change. So that's part of the goal, right? Is
Right. So my offering would be that if you were to be able to truly embrace them fully in the presence of love, that would probably be one of the biggest factors that would contribute to their awakening and making the change.
yes.
Whereas if you hold some form of hostility or fear because they're not going to change, then that very energy will be the energy that will tend to hold them in their pattern.
Yeah, and I have thought about that a lot, particularly in regards to like political behaviors and things like that. As I send out love, that's what I do. I send out love to political leaders who are so caught up in some form of war or hostility. And um, I have not thought about doing that for people who are harming the earth.
Well, I'll join you in it. Let's do it.
Hmm.
And if you cancel your need for them to change and take care of the earth, where does your mind go if you cancel that goal?
Um, that I'm just going to give up, won't do anything.
Mm. Well, there's your
Now
next worksheet,
that's my pattern that I found from my power person from doing the three earliest memories
right?
is withdrawing. That's my pattern, withdraw.
So then your next worksheet would be canceling your need to stay engaged and see what's beneath that. if that's a power person dynamic, what's behind giving up? It's like, well, I did that 1,000 times with my mom and it never worked. It never got me anywhere. So, I confront that and I know it's never going to work. So I just give up. That would likely be this kind of a series of thought disorders that might result in that behavior, that if you confront and let go, then when you truly cancel that goal for them to change and take care of the earth, that you simply show up as a more powerful, fruitful presence of love, active in the world and in your own physiology. It sounds like maybe a power person message that was developed in relationship with mom was maybe something like, I can't win.
Yeah, for sure. You hit the nail on the head.
And there's probably a whole ton of grief behind that. That's probably the core issue around the grief.
Mm.
Because, of course, you're designed to win. We all are. And the loss of that intuitive knowledge, the confrontation, the block of that knowing is monumental loss. And then
I think I'm going to change or do another 16-page power person thing with this.
with that one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be that'll be a biggie.
Thank you.
The truth is, we can win. We are designed to win. That's our basic design. And with that kind of dynamic having happened with mom, it might be useful to also do a worksheet as mom, as though you were her, around this issue and see what surfaces. Ask her permission. See what surfaces.
So mom would be the subject of the worksheet?
No, the first line, where it would normally be I, Carrie, who I'm loved, it would be I, your mom's name, who I'm loved. So you're doing that worksheet as your mother.
I see. Okay.
And then go through with, I can't win. And probably the superiority that you implied she had, that she lived out of, was probably her defense against that. So, well, I'll be
Yeah.
superior and then I'm not going to have to deal with that or feel that. Breathing with you on that.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. And allow yourself to just breathe the pulses of the universe that are there right with you to support you in opening and giving you a whole new insight into the world and yourself.
Thank you.
You are welcome and deserving, as Dr. Tim would say.
Yeah.
So breathing with you on all of that, that's like really big core stuff.
It's amazing. It's like a miracle how you can ferret these things out, asking the right questions, um, taking, a statement and going with it to its bitter end. It's a
It's joyous
miracle.
end, you say?
It's it's a miracle. It's joyous end.
An old regulatory speech comes in sometimes.
Always. It's habit, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
But that's, that's the objective of the whole world, the whole body of work is rather than living in carbon-based memory, to have that intuitive faculty open so that the universe can feed us information based on the actuality rather than the realities that we're, locked into from generations and generations of unresolved dynamics. Well, it is 1 o'clock, fast hour. Thank you. Thank you. Holding space for everybody and create the best year of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. See Jeannie and I down here with grandbabies on the beach in Destin having fun, and we'll see you tomorrow.